bad self. Welcome to Amari Music Talk, the podcast that is always on the one. I'm Richard Cole. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're a long-time listener, welcome back. And today we kind of give a little bit of the Minneapolis sound and Prince and everything purple. We're going to put that aside this week and talk about the Godfather. Hardest working man in show business, soul brother number one, Mr. Dynamite, James Brown. So February 19th and 20th saw the release on A&E channel, the documentary Say It Loud. This was a great documentary. Had to watch it quite a few times, especially in preparation for the show. Kind of wanted to give my review. Now, there was a documentary on HBO a few years ago, coinciding with the release of the James Brown biopic, Get On Up, that featured the late, great Chadwick Boseman in the role of James Brown. And I remember at some point they were talking about there being a sequel or like an expanded documentary. So if you haven't had a chance to see this, Mr. Dynamite, by all means pick this up. So in a way, Say It Loud, it's kind of a sequel. To me, it's kind of a sequel. It's kind of a reboot of the documentary. They go more in depth into James Brown, the person, the man, the human being, which means you got everything, warts and all. They didn't sugarcoat anything. So it was a very well balanced documentary. And like I said, I enjoyed it a lot. But I'm going to just touch briefly on some of the things that I enjoyed about the documentary. Like I said, been a long time fan of James Brown. Actually, as far as vinyl, this album and this album is the only thing I own on vinyl. Everything else I have on CD. I've got the Star Time box set, and then I've got a whole bunch of CDs, which I'll probably spend another episode just talking about the music in my collection. But definitely lifelong James Brown fan, listener. And like I said, I enjoyed this documentary a lot. So the first thing I want to touch on, as I said, it gives a fair and balanced perspective of the man. It didn't shy away from any controversy and really focused on the complexities. You know, we're all human beings. You know, we're all striving to get to a higher plane. Some of us get there faster than others. Some take different directions. Some take a singular direction. So that means, you know, in our journeys, you know, we have our ups, our downs. We have our good days, our bad days. There are people that like us. There are people that aren't too crazy about us. But we're all trying to get to that journey. And his journey is no exception. But it does make for one of the most dynamic lives possible. You know, the creation of a genre and that journey to fame and the toll that it can take on a human being as well. So, you know, I look at it as life lessons, you know, to future artists as well, you know, cautionary tale, you know, because not only have to get to the top, you have to maintain it. And, you know, sometimes those that have come before us have made some grave mistakes or some bad decisions or great decisions. So again, this was to me, it was fair. It was balanced. And given it was television, so you had like the commercials and interruptions, I'm hoping there's like some kind of expanded edition that we can get like on DVD at some point. You know, hope that can happen. But like I said, there's no lack of anything in this documentary. You know, of course, you know, context is needed to separate the human being from the artist. So, you know, while we celebrate the accomplishments, you know, we celebrate the achievements, you know, we appreciate the doors that have been opened. But at the same time, you know, we got to look at, you know, some of the downside as well. And it's not perfect, it's not sunshine all the time. But, you know, sometimes as a society, especially now, we're kind of getting a little too sensitive about things. Yes, definitely some things, as we're getting more truth about things, about a lot of different situations, a lot of different people. Yeah, there's some people that definitely need to be shut down and canceled or whatever you want to call it. But then too, like I said, sometimes life is that evolution. So sometimes someone may start at a point, but end up totally different. You know, so we always have to continue to look at things on a case by case basis and look at things based on the individual situation as well. But I'm glad that the documentary wasn't afraid to dive into that. The second thing, for me, it filled in the blanks of some of his most controversial choices. You know, granted, that period where, you know, he was endorsing Nixon, you know, it's kind of similar to the controversy with Ice Cube, you know, when he was trying to take his plan for Black America to the Trump organization. You know, that's considered a very controversial thing. And while you kind of get that the intention is that, okay, well, if I can get this person to listen and take a look at what's going on, you know, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, you know, hopefully they can have, you know, a change of heart. They can maybe open a door or do something, you know, to make the situation better. Unfortunately, you know, the reality of politics or the reality of certain human beings or their ideologies or philosophies, it's not that simple. You know, it's not that type of a world yet. And we may have to, you know, look at other things to try to get people to open their eyes about situations. And like I said, you know, it's a controversial choice. It's a definite misstep in, you know, doing things like that. You know, even as far back as Eazy-E attending the dinner at the White House, you know, it's kind of like, okay, you know, maybe your intentions were good, or maybe you were thinking one thing, but it's not, again, we're not quite at that point to where you could deal with certain situations like that. But, you know, again, I believe the documentary did a good job at really explaining that this wasn't like just some total sellout move. It was just the thing of, like I said, James Brown is James Brown, and he has his own philosophy and his own agenda. And, you know, sometimes in that position, you may be the only person to be in the position to carry that off. The rest of us, that's not our bag, or that's not how we would go about it. So, like I said, I'm glad they kind of filled in the blanks for that, because a lot of the documentaries that I've seen, a lot of things that I've read, you know, it just kind of puts it in black and white. You know, it doesn't really get into what he was thinking, how he was thinking, or, you know, like I said, a lot of things get lost. So I think it's important that we have documentaries like this to, again, give some context, fill in the blanks, let us figure out, you know, understand the human being. The other thing, it filled in some blanks about, you know, his arrest in 87, 88. You know, I was in art school at the time, in college, and hearing about it and reading about it. And, you know, it was a pretty heavy thing to see. Again, you know, this, you know, now we kind of have like icon of the week, you know, getting into some kind of struggle or controversy or downfall or something. But back then, that was a major deal. That was one of our major, most important icons. And to see him go out like that. But I'm glad it did put some things in perspective. It also raises, the idea of there being two, whatever you want to call it, two Americas, two types of justice for certain people. Like, I like the comment that was made that, if that was Willie Nelson, if that was Johnny Cash or somebody, if that was Jerry Lee Lewis, it wouldn't have been a 6-year sentence. It would have been like, okay, well, you got to go to rehab and slap on the wrist and whatever. It wouldn't have gone, it wouldn't have gone the distance like that. But fortunately, it was, after a couple of years, he was able to get out on parole and get his life back on track and come back even stronger than ever. But I'm glad it also put some perspective into that as well. And, when it comes to the death, there were a lot of conspiracy theories, and I'm glad that put those to rest. Now, granted, this is all spoiler, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out and come back. But, well, I've done spoiled most of it anyway. Well, actually, not really, but by all means, if you haven't seen it, check it out and, share with me your own opinions in the comments. But like I said, I'm glad it really put a lot of things into perspective. The third thing is it focused on the music. Now, to me, I don't think it went as in depth as other documentaries have done, but I think because of that, because there are other documentaries that exist that really focus on the music, but I think it really just narrows it down to, first you get Please, 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 and then you get to kind of like Cold Sweat or Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, and it kind of stops, or it kind of glosses over after Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. It kind of glosses over after that. So I'm glad this documentary like focused on 73, 74, which is something that, we don't really get a lot of in a lot of other documentaries. Great clips though, but like I said, it really focused on just the momentum especially from 64 to 74, 75, the run of hits, whether it's pop, whether it's R&B, and the string of number ones, and again, a lot of the accomplishments. I'm glad it focused on a lot of those as well. And also his business savvy, next to probably Berry Gordy and probably the Johnsons of Ebony Jet fame, James Brown, as far as, the most important black entertainer on the planet. One of the few, if not the only one, to really hammer home that concept of ownership, leading by example, having the radio stations, having the restaurants, trying to come up with a certain kind of currency that could, help communities, things which should still be championed today, to just make society better. But he was one of the first, if not the first, if not the only one at that time to do that. Now we've had fast forward to Michael Jackson and his business savvy, Prince and his talk of ownership. Now we've got all the, the Jay-Z's and, everybody, everybody's an entrepreneur now. But like I said, I think, again, looking back at James Brown and what he was able to do by example is definitely something that should be, championed. Yeah, I mean, many, many firsts as a black business owner. So the fourth thing that I definitely took notice of, and I've read the stories before, and it's kind of touched on in other documentaries, but just kind of watching this documentary, I just have one question: how in the hell you gonna tell James Brown that his music isn't funky enough for a black movie? Now, granted, this was a white director that was directing this, and I think it was Hell Up in Harlem, which I think it's a sequel to Black Caesar, which I've seen Black Caesar. It's one of my favorite films of that era, probably if not my absolute favorite. Maybe Shaft is kind of like that close, very close second. But I had never really seen. I've seen the sequel probably once, but it's like, how you gonna tell James Brown that the payback was it? Come on, come on. But that's how Hollywood is, folks. If you haven't known the truth is coming out day by day in 2024. But yeah, that's just how Hollywood is. But come on, the payback. How? You gonna tell me that? Man. Yeah. But the fifth thing that I want to talk about as well, and again, this is just my personal thing, but after watching this documentary, what I need now, what I need yesterday, hopefully the James Brown estate, hopefully they'll see this episode. But I definitely want to see, if you have the entire film, or if you just have just the recording, I want that live at the Apollo from '73. Just that clip of him doing Down and Out in New York City. It's like, oh, there's film of this? Is it? Because this is actually alive at the Apollo, and this is sort of like his third volume of live recordings at the Apollo. And this is damn funky. You can't get no more on the one than this live album. So if there's something from '73 that can equal that or even almost top it, yes, that needs to come out yesterday. And the Live in Zaire, that needs to come out in its entirety. Now, I've got a unofficial recording of that, and yes, I can testify that is definitely funky. That is also on the one, and it doesn't let go either. And I've got When We Were Kings. I've seen that in the theater. I've got the physical media of it, and just the clips of James Brown is, that performance, I've been wanting to see that in its entirety, the video. So if that does exist, if there's talks of that coming out soon, then that's definitely something that I would like to see. So, hey, what do you think? Have you had a chance to watch the documentary? What are your thoughts on it? Like I said, I highly recommend checking it out. Like I said, it's a good companion piece to this one, or it's an expansion. But I recommend watching that, getting this. Also, this set, I think it's sold separately now, but I was able to get all three. But it's a documentary about the Boston Garden concert from 1968, which was literally like a day after Martin Luther King was assassinated. You also have the video of the entire performance of that concert. Like I said, you should still be able to find it. The other one, the other disc, I don't know if you're able to find it, but if you can find this 3 DVD set, the three DVD set also comes with James Brown Live at the Apollo from '68 as well. So, like I said, it's a good expansion to anything that you've seen before, or if you already have those items in your collection. Like I said, I still recommend watching Say It Loud. Kudos to the estate of James Brown. It was also nice to see, you know, the daughters representing. It was good to see Alan Leeds in there as well, representing. I'd say the one takeaway, you don't get, outside of Bootsy Collins, you don't get a lot of the other, like Fred Wesley or Maceo Parker. But again, they've been well represented in other documentaries as well. Or if they do come out with like some kind of DVD set, and they'll have maybe deleted scenes, or they'll do it like a director's cut, if that's available, then yeah, definitely like to check that out as well. So again, let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, there's still the 7-day free trial at the $1 tier. There's also nice perks if you do the $5 and above as well. So definitely jump on board with that. And until then, create your day, create your life. Peace.